Good evening and welcome to Basalt Town Council. Our first order of business tonight is going to be a work session about 5:45. That work session is a presentation of ADU incentive program and affordable housing mitigation. And Michelle and James.
Sure. We have consultants here this evening with us. We've got Brian Duffany from Economic and Planning Systems on the Zoom call. And we also have Eric Krumgold and Christian Weber is online from Design Workshop. And we're actually going to start with the affordable housing mitigation because EPS has to run to another meeting earlier. So, and the two topics that we have this evening came out of recommendations from the 2024 Basalt Housing Needs Assessment that was completed by EPS. And so to begin with, EPS is going to go over the community housing mitigation recommendations they have. And we don't have resolutions tonight because this is a work session. We're hoping to get the consultant presentations and then some initial feedback from council. And then we can bring back resolutions at a future date. So with that, I'll introduce Brian Duffany in the EPS conference room. Brian, you want to take it away?
Hi James, just a quick sound check. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, sounds good. We can hear you good.
Wonderful. And I've got backup with me here just in case we run long because I have another council meeting to be in a little later this evening. My colleague, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Andrew Greenson, and I've been with EPS for 25 years and have done quite a bit of work in the River Valley and happy to join you tonight.
Great. So would you like us to run the deck then? It's fine. I've got
If that works, or I'm happy to do it as well.
Got it here. Actually, James, if you wouldn't mind, it'll be a little better on our end to be able to see the room, I think.
Yeah, just
Thank
give
you.
me the heads up when you want to change it. Quick second here, apologize. No, we're on.
Maybe I should run it.
Oh, sorry, here we go.
Perfect. Thanks, James. Yeah, we'll try to keep this to the highlights because I want to make sure there's enough time for the ADU discussion as well. I know we've got a tight timeline tonight, so I'm going to just start with, go ahead to the next one, please. This is what we're going to cover, the main thing to the inclusionary housing and linkage program mitigation rates, which we'll get into. Go ahead to the next one. Just want to start with some definitions here. So we're talking about inclusionary zoning, the town's inclusionary zoning policy, and the town's residential linkage policy. So inclusionary zoning, or sometimes you may hear it referred to as the inclusionary housing ordinance, or IO. It's implemented under your zoning authority. It requires a percentage of new housing units to be set aside as affordable units. It's a form of zoning. It's enacted under the police power that you have to do various things like code enforcement, health and safety regulations. And the set aside rate, the town requires 20% of the units or 25% of the square footage residential to be affordable. That set aside rate is determined as a policy decision at your discretion. There's a fee in lieu option. Again, this is just applied to residential development. Residential linkage is a little more complicated. And when we talk about linkage, it can be applied to new residential development or new non-residential / commercial development. So linkage is more like an affordable housing impact fee or a linkage fee, in that it links the employment generated by new development to the affordable housing demand it creates. And so it's treated as an impact fee, which is an exaction, and you have to have a nexus study to support the fees to establish the essential nexus and rough proportionality of the fees. And so that's where you see the job generation rates by the different land use types, and then they convert the jobs to employees into households, and there's just a bunch of math that then converts that to a fee that's equivalent to to mitigate the housing demand created by the new employees. So that's the technical part of it, and then there's the policy part of it where you set the mitigation rate, so your study can determine that. So Basalt's, I think, generation rate is 4 employees per 1,000 square feet for non-residential, and then the policy is that you mitigate 15% of that. So go to the next. And the policy is set at the discretion of town council. So we're looking for just direction and consideration on our items 1 through 4 here. So we consultants are suggesting, or maybe considering, that you maintain the current inclusionary housing rate of 20% of units, 25% of floor area. There are some exemptions for smaller homes in your current IHO that are worth looking at. Changing the way that IHO and linkage are applied to mixed-use projects. And the last one that we're really focusing on this evening is potentially, our suggestion is maybe increase, if you wanted to do this, to increase the commercial mitigation rate to 30% to be a little more in line with some of the peer communities. 5 and 6 are just sort of by the way, using developer and annexation agreements to leverage additional affordable housing is something you're already doing, and it's a more limited application. And then regionally, some communities are looking at, particularly Pitkin County is looking at a new fee program that would levy a fee to mitigate housing demand created from remodels and major renovation projects. Next. Okay, and part of the reason we're having this discussion on the IHO rate versus the linkage rate is people were asking, why does Breckenridge have such a high mitigation rate? Why does Aspen have such a high mitigation rate when our IHO rate is only 25%? Well, as we're going to show you, they're very different numbers. They're, what was the word you used, Andrew?
Disparate?
They're
Apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges, different denominators.
Yeah.
Okay, so 25% of the residential units versus the linkage, which is a factor applied to employment generation. So they're very different.
If I can just reinforce that point. So one mitigation rate applies to the floor area of a home, and the other mitigation rate applies to the number of employees generated.
Right.
So we've got construction over here, and we've got head count over here, 2 very different things to which to apply the mitigation rate to. So that's the apples and oranges, different denominators. Just if you can keep that visually in your mind, then once we get to the tables in a few minutes, it will become much clearer.
Yeah. So around your neighborhood and around the region, communities have different approaches to mitigating affordable housing for new development. In the Roaring Fork, most communities have linkage. There are a couple outliers, so I'm going to go in reverse order. Snowmass Village has residential and commercial linkage. Pitkin County has residential and commercial linkage. Carbondale just has inclusionary housing. Basalt has inclusionary housing and commercial linkage. Aspen has residential and commercial linkage. And you'll notice that kind of the trend here is that the higher cost and sort of mountain base area portal communities tend to have residential and commercial linkage, while others have Vail. There's probably some interesting historical coincidences why that is that we don't need to take time to go into tonight. Go ahead to the next one. So the inclusionary housing requirement in Basalt, so this is applied to residential, it's 20% of the units and 20 or 25% of the floor area. And looking at the communities that have this policy, I mean, this is judgment, this is policy, sort of eyeballing it. It feels like Basalt is in the range, is in a reasonable range of some other somewhat similar places. So Carbondale just down the road is 20% requirement for IHO, we're at 25%. As you'll see coming up, the IHO tends to generate more units and more fee revenue than the linkage programs. So I'm gonna go to the next one. So this one, when we were doing this research, we uncovered a couple of, the town code currently has a couple of exemptions of the IHO. So a project that is building 3 or fewer new homes is exempt from the inclusionary housing requirement if the homes are smaller than 3,000 square feet for a single unit detached home or 1,400 square foot for a townhome. So we think there's, given the market, the affordability pressures you have today, also I think 3,000 square feet by today's standards is a pretty big house, that you could consider reducing this square footage level or even eliminating these exemptions. I think there was discussion among BOC and among Planning and Zoning Commission of maybe reducing that exemption to 2,500 square feet for a single home, but maybe still requiring the policy for projects with 3 units or more. So that is one thing to consider there. Next. Okay, so this is residential linkage. We're looking at residential linkage mitigation rates for several high-cost mountain towns. And so this is after they do all of the math of what's the land use, what's the employment generation, how many households does that translate into, at what income levels, and what's the fee. Then they apply this mitigation percentage to the number of the amount of housing they have to mitigate. Basalt is not on this chart because you don't have residential linkage. You address residential with the inclusionary housing. So this is where you see these really high mitigation rates in some communities, and some are also, they have a policy that ramps up as the size of the house increases. For example, Crested Butte, San Miguel County, Gunnison County, their fees increase with the size of the home. Next. So on commercial linkage or mitigating new impacts of commercial development, employment generating development, if you sort of look at Basalt compared to some other towns, one might conclude that Basalt is maybe on the lower range of some of these other high cost communities. And of course, there's a lot of policy discussion and consideration in setting these mitigation rates of balancing job attraction and economic development and commercial development with the needs for affordable housing. So I think just sort of eyeballing it, we were thinking that if the town wanted to consider increasing it, maybe something in the range of 30% might be a little more consistent with what's been adopted around the region. Go ahead to the next one. A lot of math on the next slide. I'm going to focus on the highlights. We did a case study looking at 24 townhomes of 1,000 square feet each, so 24,000 square feet of residential development. Looking at it using a residential linkage policy, using inclusionary housing on the square footage and as a percentage of units. The employment generation from residential is pretty small. And so you end up, after you whittle all this stuff down and apply the mitigation rate, you end up with this 24 unit townhome development needing to provide housing for 2.073 units, if you want to get precise, compared to the IHO with at 25% of their square footage would require 6.3 units of mitigation. And on the fee revenue, the linkage policy is about $1 million in fee revenue. The IHO on square footage is about $3.2 million in fees and about $2.4 million of fees as a percentage of units. So pretty big difference there. That's why we've said they're sort of apples and oranges, different denominators. Next.
Just a note on that, the town code currently requires either the units or the fee. Council could accept a fee that typically requires the units to be done, just as a background.
Thanks, James.
And on the mixed use application right now, the current town regulations require mixed use projects to use the highest mitigation of either the commercial linkage or IHOs. I think you run the math both ways and figure out which has to pay, you know, which generates the most units, and that's the one you're required to do. In our judgment, it seemed a little bit complicated. And there might be a better nexus for the linkage program if you just kept it simple and applied the IHO to the residential portion and the linkage to the non-residential portion. There's not a major difference in those two approaches right now if you stayed with the 15% mitigation rate on commercial. In terms of fee revenue, they would both generate, you know, $6.5 million. 12 to 13 units of housing that would need to be mitigated. But then if you increase that requirement on the commercial linkage to 30% mitigation, that would go up to about 15.8 units and generate about $8 million in fee revenue. So, you know, roughly $2 million more than you would get as it's applied today. So that's fairly significant.
And just
there's some.
Sorry, Brian.
Go ahead, James.
Under our current code requirements for mixed use, we utilize the higher of the residential and commercial mitigation, and then we forgive the other. EPS is recommending getting rid of that scenario where you forgive the lower. And we originally did that to be consistent with what Eagle County did in 2009, so we didn't have jurisdiction shopping. There's not such an issue.
Are they still doing the same thing?
They're changing their code right now, and I'm not sure where they're at with their code changing.
I'm not sure. Thank you.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead. Still there, Brian?
Sorry, we're having an internal discussion to see if we could remember what Eagle County's doing. One of our colleagues who's not here might know, but okay. So yeah, and that's the bulk of it. Just going to recap then our suggestions for your consideration. I wouldn't know that I might back off from that. These are our recommendations. These are our what you might consider. I think considering keeping the IHO rate alone at 20% of units, 25% of floor area. I think there should be some discussion of those exemptions for smaller homes, whether that still makes sense in the current market, the current affordability pressures. And then a little bit of housekeeping cleanup on the code to apply the IHO to the residential portion and the linkage to the non-residential portion. And last, considering increasing that commercial mitigation rate from 15% to 30%. So with that, we're happy to take questions and help with any discussion.
Thanks. What questions you guys have, or comments, or thoughts?
I have one. In Pickens County, it was 100% based on a remodel. Is that triggered because most of the remodels are a scrape and replace or a significant increase from existing square footage to what's allowed in the county generally, which I think the minimum or minimum in most places is 5750, and in other places you can go much higher depending on TDRs and covenants for HOAs and caucuses and all that stuff. I just wonder why their focus is so heavy on remodels.
Brian, did you hear that question about Pickens County? And remodels?
It was picking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pickens' current mitigation rate on residential. So this is, if you're building a completely new home, the current mitigation rate is 100%. Right. Do you want to talk to the renovation fee?
Yeah, so EPS is currently working with Design Workshop in Pitkin County on a very similar set of questions related to similar mitigation efforts for residential development. The remodel has been elusive across the region, and by region I mean the Rocky Mountain West, New Mexico up to Montana, in terms of the resort communities that we work in, mountain resort communities. And There has been always a desire to be able to capture remodel activity. However, isolating the employment that is strictly related to residential remodel has been very hard to do. Because Pitkin County is facing, as staff tell us, the $30 million remodel, which is basically where you've got everything, and just leave enough of the structure standing so you don't have to qualify for different kind of permits. However, it really is a burden on the labor force to be able to do the remodels that Pitkin County is seeing. So we have it's underway. It's not released to the public yet, but the data and the modeling has been completed to be able to isolate the remodel employment. Now, if your question was really about mitigation rates, they're maintaining a consistent mitigation rate at 100% across the different categories.
No, my question was specifically remodels, and generally they increase the square footage of the house when they do remodel, which puts, and a lot of times they're not single-family residences, they're vacation homes and second, third, fourth
Sure.
homes, which create a lot of service demands that ordinarily you wouldn't see if the home was stayed its original size.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the working assumption is that any addition, and you're right, many remodels are accompanied by some additions. So the additions would be subject to the new construction mitigation standards. Construction of any sort is one category, and then remodels is a second category, and the working assumption is to combine the two.
But to be clear, they haven't instituted that yet. It's in the study phase, correct?
Correct. Just in a study phase, and the reports are still in draft form.
When I look at the recommendations, I think most of it, it's pretty straightforward to me, pretty rational as far as if you guys are looking for direction. I do like what I think Bach had something, monitoring the remodel recommendations. I think we should be careful with that and kind of understand, what's out there as far as what people are doing, what that might trigger, et cetera, why they're doing it. That's, we want people to keep up with their stuff and, but there's also what you described, Rick. So I think we need to really make sure we understand that before we do anything. I also like what Bach and P&Z were talking about as far as exemptions, looking at changing those as far as, I would think it's the 3,000 square feet and under, or 3 homes or less. Because we should take a look at that, what we can do there. That would be my feedback, but this is pretty straightforward to me. What other questions or comments y'all have?
I guess on the commercial, the 30% requirement for employee generation, do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, currently we have the 15% mitigation, and they're recommending going up to 30 to be more consistent with other communities.
And is that applicable to any commercial, or is that applicable to grocery stores versus a fly fishing shop or something, or is it a?
Well, it would be applicable to any new commercial, regardless of kind of the use. Currently, our code anticipates that 4 employees are generated for 3,000 square feet, and there's a review process where somebody that's doing new commercial can come in and say, well, my use isn't going to generate 4 employees per 1,000, it's going to generate 2 employees per 1,000, and then the council can accept that. But then they're required to mitigate currently for 15% of those employees generated, whereas EPS is recommending bumping that to 30%.
So if a business grows, let's say a business starts 10 years ago and it grows and doubles its employees, and they want to move into a new space or build a new space, they fall under?
Yes, if they were building a new space, that would kick them into that mitigation.
Does that, hot mic, does that apply for nonprofits as well?
It does under our code, but there's potential for council to exempt nonprofits. I think it's happened at the library and Rampart Conservancy.
Mm-hmm.
Does it hurt the local economies, or does it influence local economies for businesses to locate there and find another place to locate? For example, what we're seeing, a lot of down valley migration of services to the I-70 corridor that normally would maybe stay up here if they had a place to go to. I mean, is there a catch-22 there for us to attract businesses to come here and grow their business and keep their employees closer to the work? Or is it incentivizing people to move their headquarters away from here, especially trades and other services, not necessarily banks and, you know, restaurants, things like that, but the other industries?
Well, I think that.
Well,
Go ahead, Brian, sorry.
Great question. I'll take a stab at it. Remember, it only applies to new construction. So it's someone building a new building for their business that would be subject to this policy. If they're moving into existing space or existing vacant space, they would not be subject to it. It's a high cost market up and down the valley. And so it's I think maybe a little hard to gauge and communities have pretty consistent policies on this stuff up and down the valley. So I think it's a little difficult to gauge how much it affects business attraction and retention. I think the labor force piece of it is a big one. Andrew?
When we've, it is a good question, and when we've looked at this in the past, any kind of impact fee or any kind of fee along these lines does increase the question is, who absorbs the increase in cost, and does it go downstream to the end user, or does it go upstream to the developer? And there have been studies done nationally on the question, and it's hard to find unbiased evaluations. Generally, it gets split. I will say one thing, and that is that the end user rents are going to be set at the market rate. And the market rate is going to be fairly strong throughout the Roaring Fork, but especially in Basalt. So the fact of the matter is, due to the market conditions the way they are today, Basalt has very strong rents. And so the odds of this specific program actually driving those rents higher, marginally, but some of that cost is going to be absorbed in the development process too.
That's certainly one of the considerations people think about when they're setting these policies, though.
Well, we're about at the halfway point here. Any other questions or comments on this one?
I just have a question on the IHO. I guess I'm wondering if there's any other mountain towns you know of considering increasing the mitigation percent required of new developments. I feel like being out in the community, I hear like, why don't we just jack that up? And you guys probably have a lot more information on that. I mean, I can imagine if you require 30 or 40% of a new development to be affordable, the free market rates go up quite a bit to cover that, because that money has to come from somewhere. But I'm wondering if there's examples of that going well or poorly elsewhere that we could learn from.
So is the question specifically, are other communities considering raising IHO rates independent of linkage rates?
Yeah.
And pros and cons related to that. It appears that most are migrating towards linkage. However, we are working with the town of Vail right now, and the town of Vail is grappling with that very specific issue. And we don't know where it's gonna, it's hard to tell right now what direction they're gonna go.
Yeah, generally, these policies kind of get, like yours, they get adopted and they sort of stay static for a while. They get revisited periodically. We don't see a big wave of communities reevaluating their IHOs. Vail is considering it, but not a lot of other mountain towns looking at increasing them.
But I think it's important to note that Vail is currently at 10%.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that they're considering raising it up.
increasing.
True.
Yeah, I guess that question kind of stemmed from if we're requiring 25% of the floor space to be affordable, like, would it make sense to require 25% of the units to be affordable? My guess is the impact is that makes those units smaller, but if we got more beds, I wonder if that would, if pros would outweigh the cons, but I'm open to drawbacks that I'm not thinking of.
Well, I think you're right that if you did increase the required number of units, but left the square footage the same, you would probably yield smaller units would be the kind of impact of that. But you would get more out of that, more units, smaller.
And do other places have, like, is Bale's 10%, is that 10% of floor space, 10% of units, or do they do something similar to us where there's a discrepancy between floor space and units?
It's 10% of floor area, and in the guidelines, they have minimum home sizes that have to be constructed that then total that floor area requirement.
Glad I brought Andrew tonight.
We're a good team. We're a good team.
So yeah, I mean, that was just 10% of the square footage.
Got it.
Any other feedback? You guys have what you need for this part?
That's helpful, thank you. And so now we'll move on to ADUs. We've got Eric from Design Workshop here as well as Christian online.
Thanks. Good listening in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Evening.
Alrighty, let me pull this up here. One moment. Okay. So, Eric Kronwald, I'm a senior associate with Design Workshop. I'm in our Denver studio that do a lot of work with our Basalt studio here in town. We've been working with Michelle and James these last few months on developing an accessory dwelling unit incentive program, and excited to talk through the framework of that with you today, and then some of the background information that we've uncovered as we've started working through it. So, quick agenda. We'll just kind of talk through backgrounds of ADUs in the community and the state. Talk a little bit about what we've heard from HOAs, because those are an important element to this whole equation. Some precedent programs that we've looked at, feasibility analysis, and then wrap up with some recommendations. So just to create a linkage between why we're doing this in the first place, this ADU incentive program came directly out of the 2024 Housing Needs Assessment. I think it's important to note that programs like these, they're not a magic a silver bullet. It's not something that can solve housing issues in a community, but it's part of a larger set of strategies, and it's several drops in the bucket can certainly add up. So I think this is an important one of those drops, and looking forward to talking through it. So just to start out, why are ADUs beneficial in the first place? Well, they're a really important part of kind of a community's overall housing portfolio. They can be a really easy way to incrementally add density within a community without disrupting neighborhood character. And that's what we hear a lot when we work in smaller mountain communities is we'd like to create more housing, but we don't want a mid-rise, we don't want a duplex or a triplex. This can be a really easy way to incrementally increase density without disturbing the look and feel of a neighborhood. They can promote important concepts like multi-generational living and aging in place. It can be a space for a child to have their parent move in with them, or in-law stay, or parents who have a child who's graduated from college and would like to live in the community but can't afford to do so. Can be a great space to accommodate that individual. And they're kind of a naturally occurring form of affordable housing. And given their size, typically they rent a little bit below market rent, so they can be an easy way to get into a market without having to lease a full apartment or a townhome. And finally, particularly for senior community, for seniors in the community or those on a fixed income, they can be a really nice way to supplement a monthly income by creating an additional revenue stream using their property. So ADUs have been a hot topic at the state level. In 2024, Colorado passed House Bill 24-1152, and this did a lot to try to incentivize ADUs, particularly along the Front Range. So this really did four major things. It allows ADUs by right in all single-family lots as of June 30th of this year. And it prevents local governments, just to clarify, these are local governments within, along the Front Range in MPOs, SB and MPO, from requiring new parking, owner occupancy, or restrictive design standards of that ADU. It also tackles an issue that we've run into just in looking at this ADU program up here, which is this idea of restrictive covenants for communities that wouldn't allow an HOA. It voids those covenants and allows ADUs by right within those communities. And it also created a funding stream that could be used for local communities to help them with the kind of ADU program development, fee reductions, and then homeowner assistance for folks that want to build these structures. So at the state level, just an attempt to try to incentivize them a little bit in some of the more denser portions of the state. ADUs in Basalt today is a little different story. So ADUs today are not allowed by right in any zoning district within Basalt. They are permitted currently through special review in only 3 districts. That's R3, R4, and in the industrial zone. And when you look at that as a percent of the total land area of the community, it's only about 7.1%. Additionally, the code as it exists today has some conflicting definitions and directions on ADUs. In one portion of the code, it defines ADUs as a deed-restricted community housing unit and ties them to affordability goals. In another part of the program, it doesn't tie them to affordability goals. And then there's also this third piece that the code talks about an accessory structure and allows a home occupation as a permitted use, which is more or less an ADU. So there's some conflicting direction within the code today. Additionally, from a process perspective, ADUs can be challenging, are challenging to pursue here in Basalt, just with the way things are in the code today. Particularly because of the PUD amendment process. So, a large portion of the community is some type of PUD. And if a PUD wanted to, or someone within that PUD wanted to build an ADU, they'd likely have to go through a formal PUD amendment process. And that involves a multi-step process where they have to go in front of Planning Commission, they have to go in front of you all, seek approval. It's a public hearing. It's extra steps that can dissuade some folks from pursuing building that ADU. Additionally, as I mentioned, finding out if you can build an ADU and how you can build an ADU can be challenging just because the regulations and direction are dispersed throughout the code. There's not really a one-stop place to find clear direction on that. And again, there's some confusion with this permissibility of an accessory building. When is it ADU? When is it an accessory building? As part of our background research as well, we wanted to make sure we were engaging with HOAs, again, knowing that a large portion of the community is some type of a PUD, and large portions of the community do exist within HOAs. We heard quite a lot of good information. Generally, there's support for ADUs as a concept. I think folks recognize the opportunity to create incremental housing within the community. Some of the seniors we talk to who are with these HOAs really like this idea of having a supplemental stream of income on their property. There's, I think, a general positive feeling about them. At the same time, there's a general acknowledgement that they're expensive to build. And I'll touch on that here in a second. Additionally, the thing that was raised again and again is this notion of restrictive covenants, and that many of the HOAs within the community, their covenants forbid any type of ADU. Now, it's not impossible, but many of the HOAs that we spoke to require either a 3/4 or 2/3 majority of residents to amend that covenants, which is pretty hard, particularly when not everybody may want that within that particular community. So they kind of cited that as a primary barrier to saying, well, it could be a great thing, but we don't think it would necessarily be able to happen here. We also heard some concerns. I think there's just a general acknowledgement that if ADUs were to be developed, they don't want to see them as short-term rentals. Folks want to see them used to house individuals here in the community. There's certainly concerns about parking and impacts on neighborhood character. So, but overall, I think, you know, pretty positive feedback from folks that we talked to. And ADUs across the state, there's been a number of programs that have tried to get at some of these issues. So Durango has a program currently that recently they permitted ADUs citywide, and in doing so, they look to reduce barriers such as lot size and parking, make it a little bit easier to develop. They also created a rebate program, $8,000 rebate program, in exchange for renting to a local worker, someone who lives within the community for 6 months out of the year. And then they do some type of an audit check on that. Well, we actually talked with them today just to see how that program was going, and the feedback that we received was there's interest in it, but the $8,000 is a drop in the bucket for what it actually costs to build. So there's not, they haven't received that much interest in that particular rebate program, although they have received, I think, 10 or so applications in the last year to develop ADUs within the community. Again, there's this DOLA program that I mentioned earlier that provides state funds for jurisdictions within NPOs. And then in Eagle County, they have a program called Aid for ADUs. And this is a program that I think of the three is one of the more innovative ones and what we took some precedent from. This program provides up to $150,000 in loans in exchange for a 15-year deed restriction on that unit. And the occupant of that unit must serve within the local workforce and must have an income no greater than 100% of AMI. And they do put restrictions on that, so no short-term rentals, and then it must meet the community's building and zoning standards. Anecdotally, you know, we've heard again and again ADUs are expensive, and we wanted to test this out for ourselves. So we got in touch with local builders here in the valley, get some approximate costs for square footage costs, and we ran a few numbers, and what we came up with is to build a 700 square foot detached ADU, you're looking at about a $425,000 cost, which is exorbitant, and unless you have a significant amount of liquidity as an individual or the ability to dip into your home equity, a significant amount, chances are that's a financial burden that you may not be able to overcome. But we ran this model and looked at the cost, and then we looked at what someone could rent that ADU for. So we looked at median rents within the community for similar size units, and looking at assuming you were to build this unit for $425,000, rent it for about $3,500 a month, or about $5 a square foot. You're looking at not breaking even on that project until year 8. So essentially, if you wanted to build that ADU on your own as a rental, as a revenue stream, you're not going to make any money on it for almost a decade. Once you do reach that point, there is a return. You know, at 10-year, you're looking at about a 4% return. At 20 years, you're looking at about a 10.5% return. But if you're looking at it from a revenue perspective, most logical individuals will look at that and then look at what they could get out of the market, say, why don't I just put that money in the market and make a 12% return over that same period of time. So there's not a lot of financial incentive today to do this and create this kind of extra housing for the community. So what we tried to do is figure out, well, how do we get at that problem? Because I think that's kind of the core issue we're trying to address. There's interest in it, but there's this financial hurdle. So we've developed really two paths. The first is this idea of a grant-funded program. This is really intended to offset those upfront ADU costs and make that ROI a little bit more uneven with what you could get in any other type of investment and get that return positive a little bit quicker. So what this program would look like would be grants. The town would award grants essentially as a fixed percentage of construction costs. And you'd require applicants to get an estimate by a GC. They submit that estimate to the town, and then the town would approve a grant relative to a certain percentage of that estimate. And those grants could scale depending on the cost of the projects. We do feel it makes sense to put a cap on this of about $150,000, because at that point you're building a pretty large structure. And we'll talk a little bit about the flip side of what's required of folks who would participate in this program. The other option or possibility would be getting at some of the cost issues with a revolving loan program. So I mentioned earlier, folks aren't necessarily building ADUs unless they have liquidity or the ability to dip into their home equity. That's because ADUs really don't qualify for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. If you are getting a loan from an ADU, it's a market rate loan. It's probably a 10-year term from a bank with rates right now what they are, 6.5% rate. It becomes a really expensive prospect. What this option does is essentially has the town help to facilitate through a local lender basically an underwriting loan program that would provide a loan for an ADU at a lower than market rate from an interest perspective, somewhere in the realm of 50 to 80% of the overall cost of the project. So you're still going to require the homeowner to put in money so they have some skin in the game, but you're offsetting a lot of that upfront cost. We think a 10-year payment period makes sense for this. And then any revenue that's created from this program through that interest could be reinvested back in the program. And essentially, you kind of create this revolving door fund to fund more of these projects. So what's the catch if you do one of these? Well, we would require that anyone who's developing ADU using one of these two programs house a tenant that meets one of three eligibility criteria. First, that they are either employed somewhere within Basalt's 3-mile area, that they are retired or disabled with prior local employment, or that they telecommute full-time while living within the 3-mile area. Related tenants are allowed, so a parent could participate in this program and lease to their child, but their child must work within Basalt and meet one of these eligibility criteria. And we recommend not having income requirements either. I mean, the ADU in and of itself is due to its size, is going to sit somewhere in the more affordable realm of housing in the community. We would require a 1-year lease for a tenant, so you are, you're sidestepping that concern around short-term rentals. You have a long-term tenant in place, and then you'd require a deed restriction on this unit. The owner would select the restriction length, and then that funding would try to balance it. So you could do a 15-year deed restriction, 20-year deed restriction in perpetuity, and related to that funding level. And this would help to preserve and protect the town's investment in this program. So short-term recommendations, where do we see this kind of moving in the next 1 to 2 years? And then we'll talk about long-term recommendations. I think the first thing we'd like to do, and we're currently working on, is just trying to clean up some of the ADU language within the code and really consolidate it into one section so it's clear what you can and can't do, where ADUs are permitted, what's the process look like to go through permitting them. Streamlining ADUs in relation to PUD review. So an applicant doesn't have to go through that overly burdensome administrative process to get an ADU permitted. It would really just be a by right approval, it would be a simpler approval. Support local HOAs in amending their covenant language. So offer some example language that they could implement if they were able to secure a 3/4 supermajority to overturn or amend their covenants. And work to establish a framework for these two programs that we mentioned, both the ADU grant and that revolving door loan program. Long-term, we know there's some other code work being done. We think ADUs, may make sense to have ADUs be a by right use in most or all residential zones, so long as that ADU, it's on a parcel of a certain size and meets certain setback requirements. That would bring it in line with some of what's being directed at the state level. Again, create a standard ADU code section as part of the larger code amendment in place, and then try to finalize this program that we started looking through. So with that, happy to take questions. Appreciate the time.
Thanks. Okay, back to you guys have questions.
Depends on how old you are. You started off by saying that the process is cumbersome, the cost of PUD amendment, building permit, that's all on top of the $425,000. And I'm guessing it's somewhere north of $40,000 or $50,000 by the time you go through a permit, 2-year review with all the bells and whistles. And at the end of the day, the only thing that really is attractive to my generation, I think, is the potential deed restriction, reduce the market value of the house, and build an ADU. And then hopefully my family can stay there or buy it from me. But the other option is to sell it on the free market and, go someplace else. So there's a moment in time here with the majority of the property owners in Basalt. You know, I think Hannah knows the data on this, as to how many properties are owned by people over 65. And it's the vast majority of the community that are looking to retire, stay, or leave. So how does that roll in? How can that process, the deed restriction piece of it, be accelerated? So if I wanted to say tonight, I'm willing to drop my price $500,000, $500,000 today. You know, where am I on the ladder? Because I think that is the true, that's, my neighbors up and down where I live, and that's an R2 subdivision, which is 14,000 square foot minimum lot size. And we did have ADUs permitted until, I guess, this changed. Our HOA has been extinguished, that evaporated a long time ago. So we don't have any of those other lot size. You know, the only thing maybe would pop up is character, because there'd be a few more people living there.
So the council adopted the deed restriction incentive program earlier this year. Our next step is to take that through the legal paperwork of how to implement that and then to get it funded. So that's something we'll be coming back and having that conversation about for 2026. So you're halfway there, but we have to get through the next formal steps for that.
Okay.
Maybe to address your question, in the program that's recommended by Design Workshop, they do allow for retiree that has worked in locally to, you know, occupy the units. So that would kind of fit into that category.
And with,
Build it first.
Yeah.
yeah, and with the streamlined amendment to the PUD process, if it met the building regulations and zoning requirements, it wouldn't have to go through the multi-step process. It would just be the administrative approval, which would hopefully speed it up.
I would hope it would be a permit.
What do you think's the bigger stumbling block? All the covenants and kind of those hurdles, or the financial part? Because when I read the recommendations, it seems like, hey, we're definitely running into all these things with the code, with the HOAs, with the parking. But then it's like, well, this could, financial assistance could help feasibility. Still, it doesn't really fix those kind of hard barriers that apply to the attached as well, because attached is a lot cheaper, right? Someone wants to put a kitchen in their basement and a set of steps, as long as they've got the room with the setbacks and all that, but they can't because of the restrictions in place, and that would be a lot cheaper potentially. And that's what'll probably a lot of the, you know, frankly, what do you call them, bandit ADUs? That's probably what they are, or more on the attached variety.
Yeah. I think the financial burden makes it easier to fall back on the covenants kind of argument. I think that if this program were in place and it were a lot easier to build ADUs and there was a set process to supplement some of that cost, you could, I think you'd get a lot more interest from folks within some of these communities. I think right now, just it's easy to say, well, it's expensive and there's no way we could get a super.
That would be a lot of funding that, you know, the other question is like, how would we fund this and how would we balance that between, you know, the deed buy-down program that people could leverage to do an ADU if there were, you know what I mean, like, or they could choose to do something else with it, you know what I mean? And how do you kind of pick that mix? Because we're kind of picking winners, like what do we like better?
And you'll have a better sense when the election occurs, whether or not that lodging tax will be increased, whether it's approved or not. That will be a funding source for some of these things we're talking about. We're not.
Yeah, it could be 1 or 2 80, you know, if I'm just, there's finite dollars for this stuff. So where's the most bang for our buck as far as giving people like the return, the flexibility, and whatever, you know, et cetera.
Allocation.
I don't know the answer, but that's just what I think.
Go ahead.
A low-cost thing here would be just to make it a use by right in all of the zone districts, and that way if people are able to
figure it out.
remodel their basement or whatever it is, there's a way to get there without needing the loan. That would be a low-hanging fruit to get to first. And then after that, kind of ramping up, going through the covenants, and then deciding if we have money for loans or not. So,
Makes sense.
I was just gonna say multiple tools, and then if you have multiple tools in place, then you can better allocate.
Yeah.
How does the price per square foot for the development of an ADU, like the example that you gave, Michelle, how does that compare to what we're looking at as the town as a developer, what we would be spending at price per square foot? Like, is this coming out less expensive than
no, it's right in line.
the red line?
Yeah. That's for new construction, so, I mean, it's all gonna vary depending on the site issues, of course, but it's right in line. So,
There's things like tap fees and EQRs and all that upfront loading, that's the biggest hurdle, I think, for a lot of people, is just getting through that. And I don't know what it would be for a ADU, if you paid water and sewer both, it'd be 25,
grand.
10 grand each.
No, it's 10 grand total, at least in this side of
Town,
Basalt.
in Basalt.
Last time I checked.
Better than I thought it was.
Yeah, no, it's not horrible. But I think I think the rolling back of the zoning on our current zone districts, obviously HOAs are gonna be hard to convince, but I think constructing the language to help them is beneficial. But, I just know from talking with James in my neighborhood, we have a lot of duplexes and triplexes, and you have to go through a whole thing through the town to get them executed. So it just, if we eliminate that burden, you might find some people taking advantage of that for their own personal home. But I think that's the lowest hanging fruit. Just, and then we can see, we rolled this back, and look, we have 5 ADUs without any funding. What if we did more?
For sure. And there was a note in the report about basically like doing that and then letting the HOAs manage their relationship with their homeowners, and we're not going to be the enforcer of the HOA covenants. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense, because it's like, guys, if you want to do it this way, go, do it. But we're not policing that for you. That's the homeowners association needs to enforce their own covenants, and we, make it permissive for people to do this. It's good for the town. I think that would be the way to handle that.
That was gonna be my comment. We lower the barriers that we have control over, and then the HOAs kind of have to take it from there.
Yep.
We spoke to a few HOAs, and one had larger lots, and they said this would make a lot of sense for us. And we spoke to another one that had a mix of lots, and some were really small, and you just couldn't make an ADU work. And their comment was, well, it would be hard to get a majority of folks who are living on those lots that wouldn't qualify for this program in the first place to vote yes. So I completely agree.
And I guess, I'm sure you guys are already thinking about this, but making sure that if we pass this, it works in tandem with the linkage, so that if someone builds an ADU, I see that as a benefit. They don't also need to do the linkage piece, or you guys tell me if they'd need to do both. But I feel like if you're trying to build an ADU, maybe you don't also need to pay a fee in lieu.
You need to get a building permit.
Yeah.
Period.
yeah, there's no linkage fee because it's underneath a certain size.
Okay, great.
Any other feedback?
The only thing I saw was that in any kind of rules that might be put in place, and I think that this was more tied to if we were gonna get involved in funding these things, but the 1-year minimum lease term, we do have a lot of seasonal workers, and I think 6 months is very reasonable to assume that they could be a local workforce, and, anyways, if we ever go down that path.
That's a good
It would be
point.
a requirement
Yeah.
of 6 months, not a year.
Yeah, 20 miles. Not 3 miles.
Right, that seems a little unrealistic, but
Some
again,
tweaking.
it seems, yeah.
The tweaking of the use cases of the people who would be in there,
Yeah.
I just gotta be real about that.
But that seems to be quite far down the road.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate the time.
We're definitely over by 20 minutes. So we're going to take a quick break though, and then we'll be back and we'll restart and try to catch up. Thanks, everybody.
Like dump her to your own. Hey.
Sorry we're running a little late here for the regular portion of our town council meeting. We had a great work session, though, on ADU incentive programs and affordable housing mitigation steps we're considering taking. But now, before I call the meeting to order, I just wanted to make sure everybody who's watching online and may want to join the Zoom, that you can do that by going to basalt.net, clicking on the Agenda and Meetings tab, finding the agenda for today, September 23rd, and then the instructions will be in there to join via Zoom. That enables you to make comments during the meeting at those appropriate times. And with that, I'll call the meeting to order and ask Pam to please call the roll.
Happily. Okay, let's begin with Hannah Berman,
Here.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Here.
Ryan Slack,
Here.
David Knight,
Here.
Dieter Schindler,
Here.
Angela Anderson,
Here.
and Rick Stevens.
Here.
The A-team is present. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next up, we have item 2, our consent agenda, which consists of item 2A, minutes from September 28th, 2025, special meeting, and item 2B, resolution number 49, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving an intergovernmental agreement and affordable housing declaration of restricted covenant related to the Aspen Basalt Mobile Home Park and Mountain Valley Mobile Home Park transactions. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented, if anybody wants to bring anything up.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have our call to the public. And so just some ground rules with that. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Address your comments directly to me. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments, including signing in the back of the room. And we always ask that you're courteous, civil, and constructive. And town council will make no action or take action except to direct the town manager. And just looking at the agenda tonight, we do have a couple of public hearings. Just would ask that if you're here to comment on that you wait and comment during those particular parts of the meeting. And any other topics, though, it's appropriate to make those comments now. So the floor is open if anybody would like to come up to the podium. I don't see anybody rushing up there, and I don't think there's anyone online either. So we'll try to make up a little time there. Next up is mayor and council reports and comments, and I'll open the floor up to fellow councilors.
Aspen One is selling trail signs to raise money for the mobile home park. So if you head to our Instagram or social media, we have a link and folks can bid on trail signs and 100% of the proceeds go towards the purchase of the mobile home parks.
Anyone else? Rick?
Yeah, I went to the Rally of the Valley film last night at Takab. The mayor was there and a couple other, Jim Light, and the young lady Lorena, I think, from the mobile home park, and Miguel, and forget the woman's name, but nice panel presentation afterwards. I just wanted to thank Roaring Fork Engineering, Chadwin Park LLC, and Daniel Hilson for their donations to the campaign. We got close to $10,000 from those guys, and site improvement services. So thanks to those business for joining the Basalt Gives movement. So we're gonna keep pushing to see if we can get a little bit more. They met the $16 million goal, and now the push is to try to raise another $4 million, which is a lot of money. But it looks very positive, and it was a great film. So if anybody can make it down to Carbondale on October 3rd,
That's right.
it'd be great. And thanks to Ryan and the crew. Good food. So,
It's a nice event. Thanks for doing that. Thanks, Rick. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Lieutenant Munch. He's really stepped up over the last couple of months and just keeping the team together, and to all the police officers. They're all just working their butts off for us, and I just really appreciate that. And we're thinking about Chief, so just gratitude to all the Basalt employees, but especially the police department, because they've really been working hard. So thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, it's a couple quick comments from me. From the RAFTA meeting a week ago, pleased to report that the Department of Transportation approved officially and formally the $32 million grant for the Glenwood Springs Maintenance Facility after some revisions. And a special thanks to Congressman Hurd, Senator Hickenlooper, and Senator Bennett, our delegation, for helping to move that along with the Secretary's office. That's a big project that's kind of in the middle of several phases, and it's going to lead to some lower emissions buses and some just better facilities for supporting RAFTA, which is critical, obviously. Also, the Region 8 office of the Department of Transportation, I know they played a big part in that. So all the news going on right now, having $32 million go to that for the federal government is much appreciated. The other comment I had is just in reflecting on the Police and Public Works timeline we saw at the last meeting, along with Parcel 9 and 2E. Just some feedback. I would like to look for ways that we can expedite that. The 2031 timeline that we saw in there is a really long way out, especially given that this is council's #1 priority, that we call that at our retreat in June, and I think for good reason. What we have now, we're getting by, but it's just not going to support us in the long run, and that's a long time to continue in the state that we're in. We are the applicant, we are the approving body. I think we should explore any ways that we can to expedite this process. And I know, speaking to Doug a little bit about just the financial part, I know there's things that we could figure out and do if we want to prioritize this. It's not to take away from affordable housing, it's just, we need to, we have 9 going, and that's, maintain that focus because it's pretty far along, but we need to really prioritize the Police and Public Works to get that done in a more expedited fashion. So I would just ask that we explore that.
Did that grant that I forwarded on to you, Michelle and Doug, did that have any legs, or?
We actually had a call with Senator Bennett's, was it Senator Bennett?
Yeah.
Office, actually today. And I mentioned that, and she was familiar with the grant. And I was going to send her what you had sent me, Angela. And she was going to put me in contact with some people in her office. So to answer your questions, maybe, but we are pursuing that.
It seems like
That call was just at 4 o'clock.
This is the agriculture.
Yeah,
Department of
yeah,
Agriculture.
USDA. So,
yeah, it seems to prioritize communities of our size and for the needs that we need the building for, so.
she was familiar with it,
Okay.
so.
There's a good lead there. Thanks, Doug.
And we had our call with Wold, it was a week or so ago, and mentioned that, I think you had dropped off at the end of the call, but I asked them to go back, and when they're coming back with the plan at year end, to meet the $26 million number we had talked about at the last meeting, to also look at a timeline. And then I think it's going to require, some additional resources to actually have somebody running point on their project, so to move this thing along quicker. It just can't be a part-time job for somebody here at the town. It's got to be somebody who's just full attention, waking up every day, thinking about it. So I think there'll be additional resources. So, anyway.
So that'll be a big milestone. As far as we talked about milestones last time, what is Wold going to say? What are they going to come back with as far as some recommendations and whatnot? So looking forward to that. That's this year, right? Later this year?
Yes, absolutely. And they felt confident they'd have something. So I'm probably, since we will likely only meet one time in December with the holidays, would be my guess is that the first week in December is when we'll hear from them. I'll have them present it too. Might as well hear it right from them.
Great. That's all I had. So we can move on to manager's report. Doug.
Yeah, just a couple things. It's follow-up to last council meeting where Kathy Click and some folks from the Hill came by to explain that they were forming this committee and they wanted to meet, and we did meet with them. David and I met with them on Friday. Kathy and Glenn, they seem to be the ones appointing themselves as the spokespeople for the residents on the Hill. And they have some domains, they have 4 basic domains that they're concerned with: zoning, parking, traffic, and noise. And what they were proposing that they would do is they would basically be at the fulcrum of all of these comments that all the neighbors had. It seemed like there was like 25 to 30 of them had comments with respect to these domains. And they would curate the comments, and that they would come to us over the next 4 to 6 weeks. They'd have them meet with these various citizens, and that they would come to us, and they requested for us to have like an ad hoc TRC where we'd have representation of police, fire, public works, council, and even staff to view the various recommendations that this committee, what this citizens were wanting to have changed, or at least addressed. And that we either, you know, quantify it, discuss it. I mean, it's preliminary now, what the basic suggestions would be. But I think that's kind of the process that we'll be on. So my guess is that next 4 to 6 weeks, which puts us into like November, we'll probably hear from them again. This is probably something that I ultimately will work with Gloria on transitioning this to her and seeing it through, and likely still participate in it some way. So that was the upshot of did you want to add anything since you were there?
No, the only thing I would add is that, you know, that this does seem like it could be something that it could become a template for
Right.
some things like this. We've talked about more participation in the community, and, you know, what we should, you know, document what we come up with and maybe use that as a template going
Right.
forward. So, but we'll see how things play out.
The tenor of the meeting was good.
Yeah, it was really
Glenn
good.
Rappaport and Kathy, it was a good meeting.
Yeah.
So, I did speak with Reed about the light. He seemed appreciative after he understood what I was saying, what we were proposing to do. He appreciative of what replacing the light at CC's. He asked about the one at Twin Rivers. I said, I think that's been vetted 4 or 5 different times with Michelle and her group and the planning department. And as far as I was concerned, it tried to reach out, but the HOA there has been outsourced. So there's a really kind of a hard way to actually garner any sort of communication with the citizens. So that has not been pursued as far as outreach, again, to that HOA. So I'll just let that be what it is. And then last is that Jeff asked me tonight for the council to make a motion to approve and authorize staff to submit a preliminary application for the, call it SP9, P9, it's a rugby field, based on this last project update we had. So if that's, again, it's Jeff's recommendation. So somebody would have to, if that's in fact in favor, someone would just have to say so moved and then have a second.
What was it again?
Jeff wanted us a motion for council to approve or / authorize staff to submit a pre-application, preliminary application for the rugby field, based on our last project update.
Sketch plan.
Well,
We already had sketch.
We already had sketch plans.
We already did sketch plan. It's just usually it's just a matter of procedure to authorize staff to submit a land use application on your behalf.
So moved. Oh,
Oh, that'll initiate all the,
Yeah, it's already in the works, but we just need to have that motion in the minutes.
so moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Next up, we have section 6, item 6A, Basalt Regional Library presentation, seeking council support of a local funding measure for the Basalt Regional Library. We have Amy and Carolyn. Why don't you guys come on up to the table?
Thank you, Mayor Knight, and members of the council. We appreciate your time in having us tonight. My name is Amy Shipley. I'm the executive director of the library. I'm here with Carolyn Kane, who's the president of the board, and she's acting as a citizen this evening. Our community, our library is the heart of our community. And last year we had more than 100,000 visitors to the library. Over 70,000 books and other materials were borrowed. 90,000 digital resources were accessed. And nearly 11,000 program attendees came to our events at the library. That's out of a local population served of about 12,000 people. So those numbers are huge. From school children to job seekers, entrepreneurs to older adults, the library connects people of all ages to resources, information, and opportunities. This November, voters will see a ballot measure asking them to consider extending the library's expiring 1.08 mill levy. This is the same levy that voters approved back in 2006 to fund the construction of our library. We'll be paying off that construction debt a year early, actually this Thursday. I'm making that payment.
Congratulations.
And we're so happy about that. And instead of letting that tax expire, this measure would continue it without increasing the tax rate. It would be the same amount, just carrying it forward. So for homeowners, the cost of this portion of the property tax remains the same. So it's about $67 for every $1 million of assessed value per year. And these funds would provide long-term stability to maintain and repair the building, keep competitive wages for librarians and staff, update our collections and technology, support programs for children, adults, and seniors, and ensure the library remains open with convenient hours and spaces for meetings and work. This measure isn't about growing government, it's about sustaining the essential services our community already relies on. Without it, we would face reductions in staff, hours, and services. With it, we can protect and strengthen one of our valley's greatest community assets, our library. And I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you guys. I love when my kids are like, hey, we're going to go to the library. You guys are doing an awesome job with all the stuff you're putting on. So it's really cool. It's
Thank you.
Such a good asset. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's another outcome of the community organizing when the library was going to move to Elgibel
Yes.
and created the Friends of the Library and all that. And it was awesome to watch how that unfolded and ended up being where it is. And it's just, I sit here and go, wow. It's going.
Yeah, you know, we've
Keep
been
going.
participating in the Sunday market, and you know, we're sitting there kind of looking at this building next door and you know, just thinking about the treasure that our library is to this community and what an amazing asset it is.
You know, and the windows that face, I learned a new word during the discussions called the loci, and you probably have heard that 100 times. I only heard it once. But the visual that you get out of the one end of the library is the loci, which was Basalt Mountain. So it really has a huge legend behind it, I guess, of why it's there.
Yeah.
Cool.
So more of a question for Mayor is, like, this is a request for council support, so I think we all love it, right? But
Right.
is there something more formal we need to do to agree, or is it just?
Two,
Yeah, you guys do
two
good.
items
There's a
down.
Oh,
resolution.
okay, sorry.
So we'll hammer that. Yeah, it's, this is great. I mean, this to me is, we have to do it. The content, the gathering space, how helpful everybody is who works there. I mean, it's just, I can't see how we could really do anything different. So I'm happy to support. I'm sure the other folks are as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
I was there today, got 2 books.
Well, as you're out in the community talking about this, or if people have questions, please refer them my way. I'm happy to talk to folks if they have questions about what this means and what our intentions are and what our commitments are and all of that.
You have yard signs?
Yes, I have yard signs.
I'll take one.
yard
QR
sign.
code with the QR code or anything on it so people can look stuff up as they walk?
The QR code is not on the yard signs, but there are going to be ample things around the community that'll have the QR code that you can do that with.
That's great.
So,
Tell your friends, you know.
yes, please.
There's also, you guys rent equipment too, which I think
Do.
people, I forget.
Yeah.
You like just,
You run bear barrels. It's amazing.
Yes, bear canisters are the best thing. You don't have to go buy one, just borrow one from the library.
yeah,
Exactly.
it's just- there's, you're amazed every time you go,
Yeah.
there's a surprise, so.
The ballot measure number is 7B.
Yes, on 7B.
When you see that on your ballot, it's 7B. There's a lot of measures in Pitkin County this year, generally not so much in our library district portion of the county, but just so you know, when you see that, it's 7B.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you
today.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have item 6B from DeCaw. It's a presentation on the Youth Empowerment Center. Ryan and crew.
I'm going to introduce, hi everybody. I'm going to introduce Anna Feiss, our education manager, who's doing an incredible job at TACA, serving thousands of kids. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and let her present, and we'll follow along to the presentation that was in your packet.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys for having us. We're really excited to talk to you about our idea for a Youth Empowerment Center. And the focus our focus for this space is the area on East Valley Road next to Mezzaluna. I believe it's 951 or 961. So we can advance one slide. The Youth Empowerment Center is a youth-first arts and community hub designed with and for local youth. So it's a space where kids can come, they can have organized activities, they can also have unstructured time. It's a space for them to be safe, have fun, just be kids in out of school time. The programming, most importantly, is youth first, youth driven. So this is a model we already have in place with our education programming, our arts influencers who are our student ambassadors, juniors and seniors at the local schools. One of them's here tonight with us. Help to drive our programming decisions, figure out what programming it is that kids want and need, where are the gaps in local arts education programming, and not just what we as adults think sounds fun or cool or whatever. They're really the ones driving that decision. That would continue to be the model in this space. And then really importantly, it's a collaborative space. So we would work with other nonprofits, other youth-focused nonprofits in the Valley, starting with the Mid-Valley, and then from there, to program out and have all sorts of activities, events, and things going on for local youth. You can go forward one. So the opportunity came about for us really out of space constraints, which I know might seem hard to believe to cause this amazing, beautiful space, but we have a lot of priorities. Community programming, something for all of our community, all ages, adults being one, supporting other nonprofits and local organizations, and then of course youth-focused and arts education programs. And we can't do all of those things at the same time. And we've started to see that our education programs have a lot of interest and engagement, and we want to and hope to increase that, but we're just maxed out from a space perspective right now. One really good example of that is our teen nights, which we started last year. Right now we're doing those quarterly. We hope to be able to offer those more regularly, like maybe even on a monthly basis. But right now we just can't make that happen because it takes away the ability to do other programming for the community, other things like live music, like the events we had last night. All of these things we can't do multiple of them at once. So as we were thinking about this and where space exists, we heard about this space on East Valley Road, and we thought that it would be the perfect home for a new youth-focused space, and also understand that there are other organizations and partners we work with that reach out to us and are asking for places to host their programs. So thought this would be a really good opportunity for the town of Basalt to utilize that space that has been open for quite a while. The last thing here in terms of opportunity is that our board is really excited about this idea and ready to invest in this from a TACA perspective. I think that's everything on the opportunity. We can go forward one. So the model here, it's pretty straightforward. We would start by scheduling out months in advance our TACA arts education programs. We would then reach to other locals starting in Basalt and then working with other Mid-Valley youth-focused organizations. And then from there, any remaining gaps we would put out to the community. It might be things like senior classes, community discussions, birthday parties, whatever else. That would kind of be the third tier there. And again, starting with ours and then other youth-focused organizations. You can see there's some things that we have already to go that we want to do. So we offer 4 summer camps right now with more space. Our hope would be to offer even more, probably 6 to 8 camps, maybe multiple camps running at once this coming summer, and so on and so forth. And then we can go to the next slide. What does this do for Basalt? So last year we served 2,626 youth through our education programs alone. This year we are already at 2,539. We're in September. We have multiple more things to come, including school field trips with all of the Basalt schools, workshops, after school classes and the like, so we will surpass that number. And again, we're just constrained from a schedule and a space perspective. We know that with more space and more opportunities in the schedule, that number will triple, if not more. And the other really important thing is that we see this as a place to centralize youth programming in Basalt. So we're going to work with other community partners. It can be a way that we are all working together. We're not working at cross purposes. We are understanding what each other are doing and making sure that it makes sense and we can support each other in a cohesive way. And then we can go to the next slide. One of the things from an arts education perspective that's really important here is that in the local schools, a lot of arts education opportunities are really lacking. Variety of reasons, funding being number one, lack of instructors, classes, and the like. So we see this as a way to help fill some of that gap. This is also a job, it creates jobs for local teachers and for teaching artists, right? So we would need teaching artists to run these programs. We would also need teachers or other childcare providers to staff and facilitate that space. So this help creates jobs for those folks and opportunities for those folks. And then really importantly, it is a huge opportunity for kids in terms of out of school time. Out of school time, after school time, weekend time is a really important part of kids' growth and learning and development. This is a place where they can come, they can participate again in organized activities. They can also just come to relax, to have fun. It's unstructured, it's low pressure. They don't have to worry about being evaluated or grades or all of these types of things. All of that is really, really crucial to kids' health and well-being, mental health, academic success, all of these things that we know are big, big needs now more than ever. And so really to that end, it's an opportunity to invest in the future of Basalt kids, have a space in Willits that's central, that kids can come in and out of as they are interested in activities or just hanging out and need somewhere to go after school. And the next slide. We put together this initial floor plan. The key highlight here is that this is a really flexible space. We would want it to be a very flexible space. This is by no means final, but the idea being that it could be divided into 3, 2, 1, 4, maybe even parts with movable curtains, furniture that moves really easily, that kids can bang around and is not gonna get damaged, equipment they can use and turn on, speakers, computers with Photoshop and all sorts of programs that they might want to learn. And we could have multiple things going on in here at once, maybe one big event. Again, initial stab at a floor plan. What we would like to do moving forward is if we go forward with this idea, work with our arts influencers and a bunch of local teams to figure out like what does make the most sense. Are there things here that we are missing, and especially when it comes to the types of equipment and build out we might need. And then the rest of the information in this packet you all have are, yeah, you can go ahead forward, our 5-year plan in terms of investment, and then what we think our estimate at build out cost and furnishings and equipment. So I think that's everything. For now, you can head to the last slide and we can take any questions.
Great, thank you. What questions do you all have?
I love this. I think it's thoughtful, it's creative. I was talking to the old superintendent of Summit Schools, and she was like, as a superintendent, I tried so many things to get kids to be more engaged in the world. I tried reading assistance and summer tutoring and all these things, and the biggest gains I ever saw were when teachers and staff members made things fun. And I think this is fun and enriching, and I think like there's a lot of help that's needed in the world, but also it's a time where we need inspiration, and this really provides that.
I think this space would be greatly utilized. I see this as something our kids are already interested in and looking for, and getting pieces of arts education, you know, here and there. And I could see it being a big success. 2 of my kids were in a backyard performance, an abridged version of Mamma Mia this weekend that was fully put on and organized by 12 and under, from kids 5 to 12, and they did it themselves. You know, they want to do this stuff.
I can't believe you didn't invite us.
I don't even know what I was going to. And my 2-year-old hit the floor dancing queen at the end. But it was amazing. And, you know, and they're doing it in a backyard, but they're doing it all themselves. The lighting, the sound, the props. So, you know, letting kids take the reins and, you know, just giving them the space, I think is a great idea. Kids are going to love it.
I love the idea. I think it's a creative use of what is currently under and a completely unutilized space. What is the ask? Is it free rent? Is it?
Sure, yeah. So it's a conversation. I mean, the model, the budget model, that 5-year plan that's in there articulates that it's rent-free, so TACA's prepared to basically pay for the programming and the supervision if we had the space. The big question becomes the build-out. We anticipate the cost to be around $275,000 for the build-out plus FF&E. A lot of that build-out is infrastructure, and it's your space that you own, so it has to be a conversation about how would that be, you know, how would that be handled? Because the TACA board is prepared to invest in education in this space and the programming. It's a little bit harder to say, let's invest in infrastructure for a space that we don't own. So that's a conversation we want to have. In an ideal world, the town could help with the infrastructure component, and then we would provide, we would do the finishes so that it would be useful for the kids, and then we would do the staffing and the programming.
I don't at all want to imply that I don't see all of the community benefit to this plan, but I don't want to be remiss in missing the fact that we have up till this point been viewing this space as a source of revenue generation, not as a source of expenditure.
Sure.
So I do think that needs to be an important part of this discussion.
Yeah, the opportunity cost, like eyes wide open. Because like, the right brain side of me is just like loves this. And what I really like about it, I guess this is more of a left brain side, is that there's an operating model to it, and that you guys have, like, because capital's hard to get, but it's really hard to get something to sustain an operation. There's a clear kind of objective and benefits and things that you're going to do in programming. So I love that. But I think I would love to explore this further. But everybody needs to be eyes wide open that there was a plan to monetize this in a different way. So.
One thing on that really quick, if I may, Doug, just that this came about as part of the conversation of what's going to happen on 2E, and this could certainly inform that, right? If we get something for the next several years on here, it would translate over to 2E. I do think from the monetization standpoint, the space has been sitting empty for as long as I've lived here, which is a decade, so it's not currently monetized. And perhaps if you flip the script and let's do a community use for several years and have the space become vibrant, vital, and have. Sorry, Doug, go ahead. I just didn't, yeah.
No, I mean, it's a budget discussion, you know, and it's not a question of monetization. It's also a question of if, I mean, the space right next to it's been vacant too for 12 years. So you could go see what the AB comparison would be to go to Cronky and say,
Yep.
what would the deal be? Have you had that discussion? Probably not. All right, so, but you could. If we were to sell it and you sold it to a retailer, you would have property taxes. You'd also have potentially sales tax revenue. So it's just not a question of monetizing what the value of the property is, what's also the income producing property. So it's a budget discussion. I wanted this, I'm glad you were here and present a solution, or not solution, the idea. I think that comes down to priorities. And it comes down to, it's a zero-sum game. There's so much money we have. And we know what the bridge is between what we would like to have as a public works police station. That was an extraction from the developer getting that space for the community benefit. So should the community benefit be for the youth, worthwhile recipient, or should it be for the entire community, which would be an asset that would be ultimately used for police and public works that provides over half the services to the town? I mean, that's the decision, as I see it.
Yeah.
See you.
I like the habitat model. I thought about this after we talked last night was, you know, if people want to put a little sweat equity into the space, and you have parents that are contractors and electricians and plumbers and tradespeople and sheetrockers and painters and things like that, and I see the collaboration going a little bit further with the town could participate, you know, with funding or permitting or whatever it might be to, you know, inspections. But I think that, you know, and I've said this before, but I have a son who's made a good living coming through the arts program in Basalt and going on to a career in graphic design and a lot of other opportunities too. But you know, I think it's a good idea. I think that if the community could participate from the point of view of skilled, and then the students or the participants could go in there and work. You know, the youth entity program has the tiny home thing, I think they do. So you already have some skill sets in the schools that may be emerging that could help out there. And that's what I'd push behind, get our rec program involved and really start it off that way so it doesn't become a collaboration, it starts as one, if that makes sense. I mean, it is starting as one, but bringing those guys in and getting some help.
That 275 number is, as we see it, all in for the infrastructure at market rates. So if you had community collaboration and buy-in, that number could probably come way down.
Yeah,
Also includes-
material from
Yeah. It has fees and
lumber
permits and
company,
things like that.
electrical supply, you know, if we could reach out and figure that out.
Cool idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'd be interested in exploring this further and kind of figuring all that out. Like I said, the fact that there's like a vision of how it be programmed and utilized, I mean, that's gold. And it's in the arts and performance and all the different things you can see in there. Really cool.
Great.
But we have to
Yep.
be responsible and figure out like
No, it's a
how to do
budget
an expedition.
conversation, and we're here as a resource, so let us know how we can help as you guys have that conversation.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
Just gotta say, Thursday's our 4th birthday at Takah, so
Oh, yeah.
come join us.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Thank you both.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Another fun one coming up here. Item 7A, this is the beginning of council actions. This is 7A is a resolution number 45, series of 2025, a resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, supporting ballot issue to extend Basalt Regional Library District mill levy. Harper, your name's on this one. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll let you make any comments if you need to.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of a continuation of the previous discussion tonight on supporting the Basalt Library mill levy ballot issue. And under the Colorado Fair Campaign Practices Act, municipalities can pass a resolution in support of ballot issues, and so that is what this one is aimed at doing.
I entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 45, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
They moved so fast. Is this right, Article XX, Article 20? As it's written in the resolution?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if that was like a placeholder.
That's good.
No, it's Article 20.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
When I'm drafting stuff, like, I'll do that
Oh,
to
sure.
Yeah.
placeholder.
Yeah.
Yes on 7B.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for the great
Thank
work.
you.
And we have another one coming up here, which is item 7B, resolution number 46, series of 2025, a resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, supporting Pitkin County and Eagle County ballot issue 7A to establish an early childhood service district. And Harper, this is yours as well.
Yeah, and also pretty similar and probably self-explanatory. And also, we heard a presentation, I think, last meeting from Maggie.
Discordia.
On this issue. And so again, this would just be under the Colorado statute allowing municipalities to vote in support of this resolution to provide more affordability for childcare programs in the valley.
Questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 46, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have item 7C. It's a public hearing and second reading ordinance number 12, series of 2025. Ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving a minor subdivision to adjust the common property line between 211 and 217 Longhorn Lane, Basalt, Colorado. And James, you have this one.
Yeah, thank you. This is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to approve of a minor subdivision for a lot line adjustment between 217 and 211 Longhorn Lane. As we discussed at the last meeting, it's these two properties at the end of Longhorn. And as background, the minor subdivision for the lot line adjustment would adjust the common lot line between the two properties to clean up encroachments of a porch, landscaping, as well as a walkway. And as was noted, in reviewing the application, staff finds that the lot line adjustment will not create any nonconformities and does do the activity of cleaning up those encroachments on both properties. We've got draft conditions in the ordinance that would require the plat to be executed and recorded, which represents the entitlements. So staff this evening would recommend taking any applicant comments, taking public comments, and providing council discussion. And if you're comfortable, you could approve the ordinance on second reading. We do have the applicant online, Corey Potter. Corey, do you have any additional comments for the town council?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. So if that's, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing now.
Yes, please.
So the public hearing is open. If anybody wants to come up and make any comments, or anyone online, which I don't see anybody there. I don't see anybody coming up here, so I'll close the public hearing. And any questions or comments from council? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt ordinance number 12, series of 2025 on second reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much. And next up, we have item 7D, first reading ordinance number 13, series of 2025. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, granting an extension of vested rights for the site plan approval, Southside floodplain reach to ESA review approval, community housing review approval, and a license agreement for automated car wash located at 115 Southside Drive, Lot 1 of the Basalt Business Center West Subdivision, Basalt, Colorado. James.
Yeah, thank you. This is first reading of an ordinance on a request submitted by the Van Ruin Group represented tonight by John Belkin. And it's a request for a one-year extension of vested rights on the automated car wash that was approved at 115 Southside Drive in the Basalt Business Center West PUD. As background, Ordinance 13 of 2020 approved an automated car wash on the vacant property at 115 Southside Drive, which is on the corner of West Cody Lane and Southside Drive, adjacent to the highway. The applicant has received 2 one-year extensions of vested rights, and now they've requested an additional 1-year extension. The applicant can speak to the need for the extension as part of the applicant comments. In reviewing the request, staff notes that the community benefit being provided by the project includes the town being able to buy a strip of land adjacent to Southside Drive at a discounted rate, that the applicant would improve head-in parking adjacent to Southside Drive, and I can show you that. This is the strip of land that we're talking about. In addition, with that land, it would be needed in the future for right-of-way for a Southside vehicular underpass in the future, if the town were to construct that. The draft ordinance that you have in the packet requires that the applicant would need to satisfy any life safety code updates that are put in place by the time that the updated permit is issued. It also requires the applicant to pay updated fees, including the cash and lieu fee that was adjusted earlier this year, and any adjusted fees at the time of building permit issuance on an updated building permit. So this evening, staff would suggest that you take applicant comments, public comments, and provide council discussion. If you're comfortable, you could approve the ordinance on first reading and set a second reading date for October 28th. And as I noted, we do have John Belkin here this evening, representing the applicant group. John, do you have some additional comments for the council?
I don't think so. Nothing in particular, unless you have any questions.
And I don't see a public hearing on this week, James, so we can.
It's not a public hearing. Council can decide whether you want comments.
Just questions and comments if you guys are.
Any closer?
Yeah.
I feel like we just did this.
What's that?
I said, I feel like we just did this.
Well, we asked, I mean.
No, I know, but.
I had Mitch Haas coming in.
It's all good.
And just to answer your question, and we said, we don't know if it'll happen this year, and you guys wanted to do a shorter term, so we did a year. We asked for 3 and then 2 and said 1, so here we are again. I mean, I think we all, I would say now additional hurdles are, you can see what the tariffs are doing right now. It's actually, it matters, believe it or not. But that's not the biggest issue, just trying to get the right financing period to do it. Right now, it's pretty expensive. It's borrow money to build an operating business, basically. So I own the property, I'm the owner. I'm a local, I live in Willits. You can see my 2 children here right now.
VIP members.
It's not gonna be, it's gonna be something that's gonna be run properly. And I know there've been some changes in some building codes, so when we get closer, we'll come back in and tailor that. I suspect that it's probably already in close compliance with those anyway, because it was sort of future was the thinking, but yeah, so. And I think there's a lot of benefits in this to the town. We're proposing to part of the property is going to go to the town for the underpass. We're also gonna clear up the parking issues over there. We've been letting the businesses park on the property for the last year. And right now, just because there've been a lot of people walking through the property, you'll see some colored flags out there. The businesses are sort of helping to keep people off of it. So, I think there's nothing more than me wanting to start this right away. And I think when it eventually happens, and it will, I think you'll be really pleased with what it's going to be.
Well, I appreciate you letting those guys park there. I know they're grateful for it. I service a lot of cars, so I know how important it is for those.
There's an incredible amount of traffic over there, and James, I don't know if you can bring up the drawing again. I think it's important to recognize what is in this, because I think it's spanned a couple councils. The tow-in parking is going to eliminate a lot of traffic on this, on Cody in particular. This'll take all the traffic that you're seeing on Cody off of Cody. So, that's important. Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time maximizing, there's only just enough snow melt on this property to keep it so that it's not ice on either side. And it's really optimized, like every vacuum stall is specific for this kind of car wash. We spent a lot of time and energy to do this correctly, and we're just trying to get the right environment to go and to borrow some of the money and put a bunch of my money into it, and that's pretty much it. This is my property, so I'm the applicant.
Anything else?
No, I mean, last year when you were before us, I maintain what I said. I think this is a great and appropriate use for that property in that part of town. I think it'll be an asset to the town. I, appreciate that you're a local that wants to own and operate a locally owned business, and I absolutely want to extend the rights for you, because I think you want to see this done more than anybody, so.
I couldn't express that more, and I want to bill it myself. Well, I'm not going to bill it myself, but I've had also chains call me about buying it from me, and I've told them no. So, because I want to bill it myself and live here and operate it myself. So.
I love that. True local. Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 13, series of 2025 on first reading, and set the public hearing and second reading for October 28th, 2025.
Second.
Then moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Appreciate all you do.
Kids are well behaved.
Very well behaved.
You don't know this, James knows this. I was the town attorney for Crested Butte for 15 years. So I sat in these meetings every Monday night, and I missed every sporting event that happened because I was in chambers. So I told them they had to be quiet when they came in here. We had a lot of respect for what you do.
Monday's
They were
tough.
good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. Next up, we have item 7E, which is resolution number 47, series of 2025. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a contract for the Willits Lane Safety and Connectivity Project. Catherine, this is yours.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Tonight I'm bringing to you a contract for the Willits Lane Safety and Mobility Project. This was born out of the Willits Lane Connectivity and Town Wayfinding Plan, which you all approved earlier this year. That was there was an extensive community engagement process through that connectivity plan development, and you all adopted it via resolution number 16 of 2025 earlier this year. As the next phase, as laid out in that plan, it was to bring those conceptual level concepts to full design and phase that over a couple of phases. So we went out for RFP this summer and received 7 proposals from well-qualified teams, which was great. The selection committee ultimately narrowed that down to 2 teams. We interviewed both of those teams, and ultimately the group unanimously made the recommendation to move forward with a design team led by Sopris Engineering and in partnership with Lionheart. I'm used to calling them Connect One, but they're now Lionheart, and we have representatives of that team in the back tonight. So tonight we're bringing forward to you that contract to move forward with them for a full design of the Willits Lane improvements for a total of $323,000 would be the contract amount, and we're happy to answer any questions you all have around this project.
My question would be, where does this come from the budget?
It's in post, yeah.
It's post money.
It's a budgeted line item for this year.
A specific line item for this one. Okay, good.
All phases?
I'm sorry, what's that?
All phases or just phase 1?
This would be for all the phases, the complete design scope.
I guess my only worry looking back at the original presentation and kind of the quotes we had of the amount of money this was gonna cost.
Right.
And I'm not against doing this. I agree that we do need to create this. I just wondering if we have to do this to get to the next step, but are we spending this money and then really not gonna have that future money to execute on? And then where would it leave this plan? Let's say we go through this and they present an amazing thing. Hey, this is gonna make it that much better and it's achieving all our goals. But when we have the or the police station and we have 90 or the rugby field, and we have so many balls in the air, and I know you have to continue moving to get stuff going. I just wonder where this is on our demand list.
Yeah.
And
Sure, no, I totally understand that. You know, there was a conceptual cost estimate that was put together as part of the connectivity plan. And for example, I think it included something like $12 million or $13 million worth of improvements. Well, as part of that $12 or $13 million, it also contemplated over $1 million of design fee. And now we're able to do that whole design for just over $300,000. So I think some of that initial estimating was conservative, and that's the way you should do it, right? Because if you're on the other side of the coin, that wouldn't serve the town well at all. And I also think, so just to say, I think that some of the improvements that will be contemplated aren't going to, you know, we'll scale those back so that we're probably not going to see, will not see improvements that go to that full scale. Also, I think that there's opportunity to phase in this plan. Without having construction-ready plans, it's really hard to get outside funding to help fund things. So I think having a base set of plans in place that we can then seek outside funding for help on would position the town well for future partnership opportunities. I think it moves us forward in a way that doesn't bind us to any, exorbitant design that none of us desire to move forward
And
with.
from a budget perspective, would the execution on this come from post as well? Which would be a different bucket of money.
Well, the Willets Lane as well, right?
I think the streets itself wouldn't be part of those, would it?
Well, we'd have to move forward to see, I think there's an opportunity to fund it through posts, there's opportunities to fund it elsewhere, but those all would be approved through future budgets that we'll contemplate in the future once we understand what the scale of the improvements would be.
I know we've been talking about Mid-Valley Trails Committee for a while, and we're clarifying roles and responsibilities to potentially sign an agreement to take that over. If that all goes well, is there opportunity from RAFTA? Because I know that is transit-oriented connectivity and trails is specifically what that pot of money is for.
Yeah.
Understanding, so I want to see if that's a potential funding source for implementation.
For sure. This project is actually one of the items that spurred the interest of RAFTA moving that committee and that money to the town. And so we just got a draft of that IGA, so that'll be coming back to town council for approval in the next couple of meetings. But that would absolutely be there. So I think between that, which right now in the kitty there, I think it's $750,000. That gets you pretty far through construction of phase 1 and maybe some hand-picked items out of phase 2. The expensive aspect in this plan, which is way down the road and something we can decide on yes or no ever, is rerouting the lane and rerouting the street. So there are other options, you're right, that we can bring back to that. And I think the beauty, as Catherine was saying, is that by having the complete drawings done, some of these things are all connected and you have to continue them in a linear fashion. Some of them are sort of low-hanging fruit, raised crosswalks, putting in lighting at the intersections, connecting the paths a little bit more. They're all things we can kind of prioritize as we get a little further along in the design.
Yeah, the IGA with Mid-Valleys, for me, is a separate discussion. Because I think, to Ryan's point, this is phased in. And there's also the Willets Lane impact fee, I think, that comes with the annexation of Willets in the first place, right? Isn't there money
Yeah, there's
floating
a
around?
$1,000 per unit fee
Right, of new construction?
on new construction.
So, and that's restricted fund on top of post. The other thing is, having driven that thousands of times, the nature of the road being rural on one side and, you know, density on the other, gives you a feeling of, when you drive through, you have two things going on. You have really low density subdivisions on the west side and high density commercial activity on the east side. And the other night, driving through there at a reasonable speed, and I understand there's difference of traffic levels and stuff, but it was just so nice to have that route along the rural edge of our community. And one of the things that I think came out in the discussions I attended there at the Element were, let's make sure we calm it down a little bit, traffic calms down, but let's not overdo sort of the urbanization of that corridor, so it turns out to be a mismatch, but how you blend those two things and what it looks like in between those two community centers, you know, and so that's my concern. And you know, I think if it goes slowly initially and you kind of build up to the final product, as you know, more comes online, and if Willets comes with the 9E and or the 2E and 9, and we see other development, you know, in the tree farm, that we evaluate as we go, you know, then I think it's easier to do. You know, when you do the big bang thing, and you try to do it all at once, sometimes you wish you'd taken a little more time in between, you know, but depending on what time of day you drive that thing, it's really a nice ride coming into Basalt, even on a bike, car, you know, whatever your vehicle you're in, walking. I think the trails that are all different, asphalt to concrete to 8 foot to 10 foot, all that stuff would be nice to, you know, put together. And then, of course, the first section of it through the industrial area there needs to be rehabbed anyways. Those crossings are basically gone, you know, from the Basalt Mobile Home Park, from the bus stops, you know, towards the residential. Needs a lot of maintenance. So I hope that's in the program.
I think getting a good idea of like where the rest of the budget is going to come from in that prioritization. I like everything about this project, but I also want to make sure that Police and Public Works doesn't keep getting notched down the funding list. And just for my out of ignorance, not out of skepticism, if I can get like the like, what's the quick answer when I was telling someone this was coming up today and they're like, didn't we just do that? And I was like, no, we did the planning version. This is the engineering version. But like when someone asks, you know, like, why is this the price tag? Where do these dollars come from? Why are we paying interns $110 an hour? There are great reasons. I just don't know all of them because this is newer to me. And now or later, kind of getting a crash course on that would be awesome.
Do that sometime. Are you asking about the rates in the contract or about the plan overall?
I think kind of both. I was trying to explain it to someone and I was floundering.
So this is kind of a fun dynamic between Catherine and I on a daily basis, frankly, because the idea of making the pathways, so things that we hear constantly are that there's concerns about e-bikes on the bike paths and how to manage that traffic. Are they bike paths? Are they pedestrian paths? Are they multi-use paths? Should they be wider to accommodate more traffic there, more multimodal traffic there? Should there be a bike lane added onto the street? It's really to enhance safety for other modes of transportation, and at the same time using those design features to slow down vehicle travel. So all of that said, like from my planner's perspective, it's a lot more than painting a bike lane on the lane. You have to design drainage. You have to consider how the curb cuts work. That all takes engineering and design that is oddly detailed and related to
Not oddly.
stormwater.
Catherine's like, it's not weird.
I mean, I don't always get it, but she does. The details and the big picture, but that's sort of the reasoning there. We just know there's a lot of conflicts. We also know that that is a big connector to a lot of our economy as a future and existing bike destination. So there's a lot of interest in connecting that.
Cool, thank you.
Well, you know, and I think the first 30% is really about the education component of it, followed by the engineering detail that allows you to go forward with a process that gets it approved. And then it's phased in. But I think we've learned a couple of lessons here recently about projects that are being introduced and then getting feedback after the fact when we thought we had enough to begin with. So I think this first 30%, if we really focus on what those two communities feel, you know, the Eula County side and the Basalt side feel about that, and Cypress Village and, you know, all of that. There's more units coming at the bank, I guess, too, potentially at the roundabout. So I think most of the traffic seems to be going on to East Valley, which has a nice combination of calming and chicanes and Parkway and all that. And, you know, how do we transition from that into what could become a commuter road, you know, I guess, taking shortcuts through there. But I think that the value added or the value engineering comes into play with the initial discussions with what's going to fly. So that's why I would like to get that out there.
It'd be good to have that sense of what people want and what people accept. And obviously, you know, it's people are more vocal than others. What I wonder is, you know, I think the pedestrian crossing and path widening is like, that makes something we should look into for sure. But I wonder about the rest of the scope, honestly. And that's how where a bigger lift is, engineering wise, is like stuff moving the road around and, you know, more serious kind of engineering. I would assume a road is more involved than a bike path. So I wonder if, you know, if we know that, or we feel that we could do bike paths and pedestrian crossings for sure, maybe we break up this a little bit and not spend so much. I think it may never happen, honestly. Who knows?
Yeah, and to be really clear about the road shifting and moving around, there's really only a small section on the straightaway that the town already has easements to. And so we have space over there. We're not gonna get it on any other section. So so the road it's an option in the future, but it's not something that's gonna happen the entire length. So that's one of the things. One of the other items in here that's really expensive is the drainage near River Oaks, the intersection over there, and then reorganizing some of the parking and the interaction at DeRocks Park, because there's a lot of conflicts over there. So it's easier to visualize in my head the lane extent moving around, but that's really a very small aspect of it. It's a lot of these kind of maintenance and drainage issues as well. But we can look at it all.
Just thinking.
Yeah, it's a hard one to wrap your brain around because the sections of Willets Lane are so different. The straightaway section is so different from the area in front of FedEx. The FedEx section is different than the area in front of the mobile home park. And so there's just a lot of different aspects. And I think that we have frankly quite struggled through the planning of that as well, about where do you push for the path to be widened, where do you leave the path where it is, and what can you do to make it safer there and get all of that to happen. So.
Would Pitkin participate, you think, on the, the Hook Spur side where they have the parking lot for the trail section and the activity that goes on over there?
Yeah, I definitely think there's opportunity for partnership once we have an idea of what will
Where you're
work
going.
best for the corridor and,
Okay.
and have, the concept. for
Because the
them
usage,
design.
the usage on that trail is probably 50 times what it was when it was built. That's part of the Mid-Valley discussion, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an
This is rock
opportunity,
bottom.
is getting that, that connection and even possibly improving the Hookspur Bridge with Mid-Valley Trails money. Yeah. And this section is in our budget already for this year, so it's, just to say that it alleviates the future burden on future spending for other projects.
And the funding is it, what did we say, this is in post?
Post. Mhm.
We're underspending in post. There's 35 projects in post in total, if you add them all up. So in current year, we're gonna be, in the aggregate, we're gonna be spending less than what we budgeted.
I'd be comfortable taking it, if it's post money for the,
Yes.
just given that this can help us, kind of figure out what we might be able to do and how much that would cost. Honestly, if it was general fund money, that would be a little tougher considering what we've had to do with, some of the mobile home parks and other, some of the things that have come up. But if we're healthy in the post area, and this is gonna kind of help us, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, like what are we going to do, how much is it gonna cost? If this is gonna help us plan better, we still need to decide how we wanna embark on the actual execution, weighed against other priorities, but that's how I see it anyway, so.
We have a modest surplus in post. Of the restricted funds, there's probably, 8 million or so, 8.3 million. I think post represents about 2 million, 2.4, something like that. Beginning balance, and we're not gonna spend what's coming in either, so we'll likely accumulate to that. So we're not right now pressed on that number.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 47, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yep.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
and David Knight.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
We are a minute ahead of schedule, so, moving along, item 7.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate you coming out. Next up, we have item 7F, resolution number 48, series of 2025, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a contract for the construction of a duplex in Stotts Mill. And this is Michelle and Catherine.
Yeah, thank you again for hearing this item tonight. As you know, the town purchased 4 deed-restricted lots in Stotts Mill in 2022, and recently the town completed the construction of a first duplex on lots 15 and 16. Earlier this year, Town Council approved staff to go under contract for a design build on a second duplex in Stotts Mill. On lots 20 and 21. So tonight we are bringing to you, the team has been working through the design of that duplex over the last number of months. This construction is to include a carport that will serve both of those lots. So that accounts for some of the budgeting differential for lots 20 and 22 versus lots 15 and 16. The team of R.A. Nelson has provided the town with a base proposal for $2.273 million for the construction of these 2 units, which will be, again, a duplex on those 2 lots, and it will be largely similar to the one that we recently constructed, and a few of you were able to tour recently. So just to move forward with construction. The nice part about the timing on this one is if you approve this contract tonight, we'll potentially be able to start a little bit earlier in the season, get things dried in a little, just slightly earlier than we did with the last one, and just see a little bit of constructability savings, staying out of winter conditions as we pour the foundation. But the schedule would be largely similar to the last one, so it would be completed next summer. I don't have a final schedule on that yet, but that's the summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
How much more is this one than the other one? Like
I
300,000?
printed the last one because I thought you might ask that. So it's $220,000 more. And again, this one includes the carport, and then of course, as you can imagine, there's been some increase in pricing since last.
So we're gonna have carpool ports on all 4 of them.
That's right. Mhm.
Great. Any other questions or comments?
What's this, Doug, what's left in the $6 billion question that was,
Well, I thought you were gonna ask that. So I'm gonna say we paid 800 for the lots, and we spent 2.2 here, call it 2.1-ish carport. So hopefully 3.44, so we're like maybe 5.1, 5.2. So we'd have 800 left. But of the 6, if you want to use 6, but the bond offering was actually 8.2. We designated 2.2 for the green projects. So we still have some dry powder on the green side of the house. And on the housing side, we have minimally 800. We also have put up quite a bit of interest on the board with the funds since 2022. So I'm a final tally right now. Long way to answer your question. So
that's okay.
We're well north of the 7-figure number.
Can green funds be used to build to the building permit code that we require? Is it a
Well,
green building thing? Can we
Maybe. I mean, I think
share
that's
that a
pretty-
little bit?
I mean, I'd like to confer with Jeff on, I think there's a pretty broad definition of what green initiatives were, number one. I think the decision to have some of it be affordable housing and some of it be green was somewhat arbitrary for how that money was allocated. But nonetheless, that's what we said, so that's what we're kind of sticking to, what we said we were going to do. My personal view is that the bond money should be used for capital stuff, not expensing stuff. Because the capital is being repaid over a long period of time, so we should be generating an asset that has a long use to the town. So use it for something that we're expensing. I guess you could, but that wouldn't be a decision I would make for myself.
I just wonder, funding streams, if we're gonna build housing, if we're gonna partner in the rugby field, and there's the actions we're taking to create climate, zero neutral carbon, or however it's described these days, there could be a real working relationship there.
Well,
I mean, we're
yeah.
doing recycling and things like that.
Like a
green
solar roof farm, we
bicycles.
talked about that.
Yeah.
Solar roof could be
Solar
part of the
roof.
construction cost, so you could maybe have some of that come
Yeah,
in the green
that's-
fund.
That's kind of what I'm.
I've asked that question of Jeff. We haven't, it's not on the A list right now because it's not imminent decision, but I think that's something I've been thinking about. Just to use money differently, color money, coming maybe from green versus the house.
Yeah, and when you look at a police public works facility, the size of that, and the intensity of it, and
Yeah.
what's gonna happen there, and recovering that.
Right. We put solar roofs on the schools, a lot of the public works buildings. So. Anyway, that's,
Trying to figure out how to split the,
well, we gotta get, I mean, it's a little early for you
Yeah.
to determine the capital stacks for the rugby fields.
no, I know, but conceptually, that's, I think, what we've got to start thinking about.
I'm disagreeing. And we have to think of that.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 48, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupre Bouchard, Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Anna Berman,
Yes.
and Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Next up, we have item, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thank
Next
you.
up, we have item 7G, which is public hearing of emergency ordinance number 14, series of 2025. An emergency ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, amending the 2025 budget, providing for a supplemental appropriation related to revenues and expenditures. See Doug and Jeff, but Jeff's not here, so Harper, you cover this.
Well, I'll just add that we had, the first ordinance was the first amendment. The 2025 budget was for the $500,000 that we initially approved, for the council initially approved for the purchase of the mobile home park. That was determined to be insufficient, so another $100,000 was entertained as an additional commitment. This is the subject of the emergency ordinance. Why it's an emergency ordinance is that you typically have to have 2 readings of an ordinance for it to be effective. We don't have time to do 2 readings because the money is due like tomorrow, this week, for the closing. So we're submitting this emergency ordinance so that we can have the second reading and it will be effective as of the time that we approve it. So if you want to add anything or.
Just, yeah, the emergency is also because this is the last meeting before the closing on October 14th. So this is, yeah, why we need it.
So I just have that, so that's really the essence of the transaction. It's showing that the budget now would be upside down by 990 would be the revised budget. You know, I've been looking at the projected numbers through September. You know, we are having vacancy savings, so there's more than I thought with some of the vacancy savings in the police department, thanks to Aaron's leadership.
It's a silver lining.
And then we also have some savings in the capital, so we're making it up. I don't know. We still have 3 more months to go on the sales tax, but it's looking better than it was from my seat about a month or so ago. So.
And this ordinance would just finalize your kind of previous sort of symbolic commitment, or you previously, were in favor of the 100,000. So this would just cement that.
Well, it is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. I don't see anybody on there, and I don't see anybody in the room. So we're going to talk about this anyway. So we'll close the public hearing, and any other questions or comments that were
Mayor, I move that the Town Council adopt emergency ordinance number 14, series of 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let us begin with Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Anna Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
That will conclude our meeting. I don't have a gavel to bang to say it's done, but we're done. So thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
Ended 15 minutes.
Didn't have to fire up our